That's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. I mean, honestly, I'm more curious as to how you got here. Maybe you saw some of my clips. Maybe you heard somebody mention me a while ago on a podcast. Maybe you were looking for me in the bathroom and you ended up here. Welcome, first of all. My name's Jim. I wanted to make a comedy special, but three big things were kind of in my way. I have no money, no one knows who I am, and nothing matters, and we're all just delaying the inevitable. But regardless of all that, I made one anyway, and it's called Tews With Pictures, and it's probably how you ended up here. So now I'm going to tell you how and why I did it. And if you're not a comedian or a comedy nerd, hopefully there's some takeaway in here for you about doing something for no apparent reason, spending your own money on a vanity project and creating art and collaborating with people because it's fun. It's fun and it's work, but it's also fun. And it doesn't have to have a point, you know? To give you a background on who I am, I'm a comedian, animator, artist, video editor, whatever. I've done a bunch of stuff. Most of it has been stand-up. So I started comedy in 2003, right at the end of my Coast Guard enlistment. And then I didn't re-enlist. I got out. I pursued comedy in some form ever since. And I've done a lot of cool stuff. I've been on television a couple times, performed in world-class clubs. I've performed on several continents. I wrote a New York Times bestseller. Slight asterisk there. It was a parody book about cats, and it was number 10 on the animals list, but it still counts. My point is, I've made my living with comedy stuff for like half that time, and it's never been consistent or reliable. So I've also been a writer, a blogger. I have to read off the list because it's long. A writer, a waiter, a barista, a bartender, a secret shopper, a graphic designer, an animator, and a video editor. And I'm probably missing a few other odd jobs. While I did all that, I also did comedy at night and in the in-between hours. And that's been like half my life. And most of the time it's cool. It's fun. You know, I don't know what else to do, to be honest. But that's kind of on me. Before comedy, I was born and raised in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I was a caricature artist at an amusement park, Dorney Park. Then I joined the Coast Guard right out of high school for 4 years. I ended up stationed in Cleveland, and I worked like an admin job and went to college there, got out, went to Cleveland State, studied film, and then in 2011, I moved to New York City to pursue comedy and the arts. So there you go. Now you're caught up. If you have any other questions, you can leave them in the comments below, and I probably won't answer them unless you're Mark Maron. So why did I do this comedy special? Good question. I've just been compelled to do things to make things for my whole adult life, you know? And it's like buying lottery tickets. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. Either way, you're a gambling addict and you got to keep scratching them. So this was another lottery ticket that I was compelled to scratch. But honestly, I don't feel like I'm playing the lottery anymore. I feel like I've just really grown to love scratching the ticket. Does that make sense? I think it does. I'm going to write that down. I won't make this a video about how difficult and frustrating it can be to try and make a career in entertainment. That could be like a whole nother depressing video. That's not the point of this. The point of this is about making something that you feel like making. And that's where I was with this comedy special. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a comedy special with a visual component, a slideshow, a little beyond a PowerPoint, maybe some PowerPoint kind of things, pictures and drawings, whatever. Not groundbreaking, nothing extreme, no pyrotechnics, etc. Just a little something extra. And I just wanted to do it. And I'm lucky that I have a supportive network of friends and family that were like, yeah, that sounds fun. Like, go do that. And then when I started trying it out places, I got good results, good reactions from crowds that saw pieces of it. And Then I talked to my record label that I work with called Blonde Medicine. They've done my last 2 albums. I talked to them like, hey, what do you think about this idea? They said, that's a cool idea. We'll do the audio part of it. So I got all of the approval I needed. There was no larger entity to say, no, that doesn't fit our voice, that doesn't fit our network, that doesn't fit our brand. There was no army of Patreon subscribers that are already expecting me to do some sort of thing that I'd been doing. So I went ahead with it. I was working another job at the time. I was working as an animatic editor at a animation studio in Brooklyn, and I knew that job was ending. So I scheduled a date, found a venue, and just said, all right, let's work towards this. So I picked a date far enough out, found a venue, and I said, let's go, forge ahead. That's one big thing about doing your own stuff, is to still kind of set your own dates. You got to put it yourself in a position where you're gonna have an issue if you don't follow through. So that's what I did. So how did I do it? Well, I won't say I did it. I'll say we did it. I have a lot of good friends, a lot of good collaborators, loved ones, a record label, etc., that were instrumental in allowing me to do this other stuff. And I say that friends, these are people that I've known for a long time. And that's a big thing. Please make friends. You should make friends and collaborators. Make stuff together, because it's like a long journey. And if you can't make friends, go ahead and hit pause on this YouTube video and look up how to make friends, and then go make some friends. So if you're going to commit, 20 minutes to an hour of comedy to recording forever, I'm going to say that there's like 4 things involved here. I'm going to structure this for the sake of YouTube and your attention span and my attention span. First, you got to prepare the material. Second, secure a venue. Third, hire as many AV professionals as possible. 4, prepare it for distribution. Step 1, prepare the material. Many comedians overlook this vital first step to the comedy special process, and that's okay. Everybody's idea of ready is a little bit different. I would have loved more time to work on mine, but it just didn't happen that way. And I've been guilty of it myself way back when I first started. I was kind of like a tech geek, an AV nerd, and I recorded a set, like a 20-minute set at the Cleveland Improv, I think. I recorded that set on a mini disc recorder, okay, with a little microphone that plugged into it. And then I burned that set to a CD. And then I made copies of that CD. And if none of that made sense to you, you're too young, you have to go Google it. I don't have time to explain. But I did that, and I took that bad set on the CD, and then I would sell it at shows where I also did a bad set. So I would do a bad set and then sell a bad set, try to sell it after the show, because I needed gas money. But it wasn't good, and I was just too young to know, don't do that. You don't have to do that. It's not going to help. But that's okay. That's it. I'm sure some of you are going to watch this video and you're going to go do exactly that. And I can't stop you, but that's fine. That's part of the process, It's okay if you do that, but try not to. Get the stuff ready. Get the goods. Make it work. For this special and this album, it took me a long time, especially by comedy standards, modern comedy standards, and everybody makes a new album every 6 months or whatever, and a new special every year. But I'm not on that timeline for a multitude of reasons. First of all, I just don't write that fast. Second, I got to make a living. And like I said before, I do that in different ways from time to time. So this took 4 years to put together, because my last album was called Oatmeal, and I recorded that in 2019 at the end of the year. And then the pandemic happened, and then everything was shut down for a while. And then I had an existential crisis, and then I got married, and then I had another existential crisis, and I was working on this material all in that time. And then on top of that, I decided early on that I wanted a visual component to this whole thing. So I had to decide what worked visually and what didn't. And then on top of that, I had to find venues to work it out in that could accommodate my goofy slideshow. And luckily in New York, there's plenty of places that do that. Even like the weekly show that I run at a bar in Williamsburg has a projector and a screen. So I was able to run it there. The venues I chose when I went on a tour or, did road weekends or whatever, a lot of them had screens. Some of them didn't have screens, and we just had to kind of set something up like in a basement, and that worked, and that was fun. But it just added to the prep time for the whole thing. And I was okay with that. Yet another bonus of not having anyone to answer to. So take your time with it. Get your act together, literally and figuratively. Number 2, get a date locked down and get a venue. The venue part of it is, when I say get a venue, what I mean is find a space that you can fill like twice with people, enough people. I can't think of like what a minimum audience would be that would look okay on tape. I'm going to say like 20, and you're going to want to tape 2 shows because you're going to do something wrong or different, and you just want to increase your odds. So find a place that you can fill with at least 20, 25 people twice over. I think capacity where I filmed my special was 40, 45, something like that. I don't even know. But, we did that. We sold out the first show. Second show wasn't quite sold out, but it still felt full, and it all works. But just find a date that's far enough out to let you prepare the material, and then get a venue that you can get people into. Because I have found that the audience is a huge part of this. The other part of this, the space part of the venue, is important. Because if you're bringing like cameras and lights and sound into a space, or even just cameras, even more than just what's sitting in the audience, it can be a lot for the venue to deal with, right? Because they got to move chairs for tripods. They got to make sure this outlet's open. You might have stuff plugged in that they're not normally plugging in. The lights might be brighter, etc., etc. So if you're finding a venue, make sure it's somebody that is cool with you filming there. Again, I'm lucky because of the connections I made in Cleveland and that comedy community there. I filmed this at a place called Imposters Theater. It's a black box theater in a part of Cleveland that I like, and it's run by a comedian and actor, Michael Bush, and he was very accommodating and said, do what you need to do to the space, and was really cool about it. If you don't have that sort of connection at your disposal, you could shoot a comedy special anywhere. That's the one cool thing about everything going on now. It's like, yeah, a lot of people have comedy specials. Technically anybody could do one. They might not all be good, but you can like do whatever you want. Like shoot it in your backyard. Like who gives a shit, Can you get camera and lights and people into a space to watch you do what you feel like doing and laugh at it and enjoy it? There you go. So film it anywhere, whatever, like backyard, basement, break into a church. I didn't tell you to do it. Number 3, hire professionals. I say hire professionals, which implies that you're paying them money, and we haven't addressed the issue of money yet or the logistics of it. I'll get to that in a bit, but for now, let's just pretend that like the reality of a budget isn't a huge issue. I say hire professionals, I mean find people who know what they're doing. You need somebody who knows what they're doing with the video. You need somebody who knows what they're doing with the audio. And if you can pay them, that's great. If not, it comes back to making friends. Did you try making friends? They might help you. If you'd like me to make a video about how to make friends, let me know in the comments. So for audio, in my case, I was lucky that I have this record label that I work with, that I've done my other albums with, and they said, we'll do the album version of this. And they sent and paid for an audio engineer that I've worked with before, and he knows how to mic a room and mic a comic and get all this coverage of everything so it sounds amazing. And I'm lucky I have that relationship and that history and this record label. So for audio, that's the foundation of all this, okay? You know, bare minimum, you want a microphone on the comic in some capacity, either handheld through the board or a lav mic, and then you want to mic the audience separate, right? So you can mix it later. I won't go too deep into that. And a lot of you, if you're like young, you probably know all this shit. I don't even know why I'm telling you. Get out there. Go TikTok. For the video component, same thing applies. There is no shortage of ways to get your performance on video. I mean, a lot of venues have like in-house systems now, which is crazy. It's so helpful, and it's great. A lot of those, though, like, they're going to be like one angle. You want more than one angle. 3 is probably ideal for a longer thing. You don't have to film the audience, but it's probably a good idea. Because like, what if a guy in the crowd is wearing a funny hat and you want to say something to him? Or what if there's like 2 people sitting up front and they look like father-daughter, but they're actually husband-wife? You're going to want that. Also, just another practical part of it is for cutting. I had 5 cameras. I had a medium that was kind of like on me from left to right. One that followed me, like a medium close. And I had 1 static on the screen and 1 lockdown wide. And then another one was like a handheld that was filming the audience, which is actually the camera I'm talking to right now. Give it up for that camera, everybody. It's a Panasonic Lumix GH5. I bought it used during the pandemic. But however you shoot it, I do recommend that you try and get all of the same camera. So if it's iPhones, try and get all the iPhones. If it's GH5, try and get all the... it's easier when you go to edit. Another thing to consider is storage of all this stuff you're shooting, because that's a lot of math. It's it's a lot of SD cards, a lot of hard drives. Try and find somebody who knows what they're doing with that so that they can do the math, because you don't want to be doing math. Editing is a whole other part of the process that is boring and arduous, but very necessary. It took me about a month and a half, 2 months to slowly edit everything down to a cut that I was like sort of happy with. We're not meant to like listen to our own voices for that long over and over again. Psychologically, it was kind of weird. I had to disassociate quite a bit, but you know what? I couldn't afford to pay anybody to do it. So there you go. An extra step to the post-production process would be color correcting. And a lot of the cameras were different on this, so they had to be matched, and I did that myself, and I think I did fine. Don't tell me if I did fine or not. I was okay with the job I did. I would have loved to have hired somebody to color correct this. I just couldn't afford it. But if you shoot on all the same cameras, then you don't have to worry about that part of it as much. And if you can hire a colorist, then fucking good for you. But I couldn't do that. I don't have a rich uncle. So speaking of rich uncles and not having them, I'll get to the money part now, like how this was paid for. I'm not going to give you exact numbers because I don't want to go back and do this math. It's not fun. This special was self-funded with the exception of the audio portion. The audio portion, the engineer was paid by the record label. The person who mixed that audio was paid by the record label, but offered a day rate to the camera crew. We had a production assistant. We had a projection tech friend of mine who brought that screen in and brought the projector in, which, if I hadn't been a friend of his, I would have had to rent all that stuff. So again, try and make friends. That added up. There was also the money I spent to go to Cleveland. I just went to Cleveland for a couple days with my wife. We rented a car, rented an Airbnb, and that was like our vacation, basically. So I shot the special on Friday night. Then we spent the rest of the weekend just hanging out. That is an additional exceptional expense that, hopefully Don't like try and tie your vacation in with shooting a comedy special. It is an added stress. The money I used to pay for all this was money that I had saved up from working, and instead of planning for retirement or an emergency, I self-funded a YouTube special. I don't recommend doing that. I don't know. I'll regret it later, I'm sure, but I got kind of lucky because earlier that year in the summer of 24, Threads, they started offering a Threads bonus for creators, and I qualified for the Threads bonus, and I started hitting the max bonus pretty quick. So I was banking like $300 to $500 a month for a while from Meta, which was a big help in paying for this special. So I don't want to say thank you, Meta. Not that people are coming to Meta platforms solely for my content at any point, but between my Felines of New York account and other things, I've given enough data and time to Meta platforms for old Mr. Zuckerberg to throw me a cool $2,500 over the summer. I also sold tickets to the tapings, so that helped, that covered the venue expenses and gave me a little more to put back into the pot. And I'm going to say I came in around maybe under $5,000 all in. It could be more or less. I don't feel like going back and looking at this because I just like pulled the trigger and didn't think about this. I don't recommend that. Make a spreadsheet, have someone make a spreadsheet, figure that stuff out. I just don't. I don't always operate well that way. I just kind of, like I said, set a date and then hit the gas. And that's a little stressful. Now, getting out to Cleveland was, side note, this is an aside, and hopefully this doesn't affect you the way it did me. I got food poisoning on the Tuesday before I filmed the special, which was the day before we were leaving for Cleveland. Luckily, it went away, but I was diarrheaing my brains out for 24 hours, several days before taping this special. Don't know why I told you that, but, hey, when you make plans, God gives you diarrhea. So now you make something like this and you got to put it out somewhere. I didn't look too far into that because I just didn't have the energy, to be honest. I knew that any larger distributor or channel would not want anything to do with this when I made it, so I produced this with the intent of putting it on YouTube and cutting it up. I did send it to 2 larger distributors that I was familiar with, and one said, "We like you, but we don't have room for this," and the other offered $2,500 to own the rights in perpetuity. So I said no, which is the correct answer. You should try and own your stuff to the greatest extent possible for as long as possible. And selling out is cool. You should do that, but make sure the price is right. Not like half of what it costs to make the thing. So I got it prepped for YouTube, which was easy. YouTube doesn't have really strict standards. I just got it to the highest quality I could get it to, published it. I also knew I wanted to put this on, obviously, some vertical platforms. So I took another 3 or 4 days to cut everything into a format that worked vertically. And Adobe Premiere did some of that automatically, but because of the slideshow aspect, I had to do a lot of tweaking on my own. If you're just doing straight stand-up, the Adobe Premiere AI that automatically makes something vertical works really well. There's also AI platforms that will cut your clips up like that. If that's your thing, go ahead and use that. But just factor all that into the time it's going to take and the effort it's going to take to get the most out of what you're doing. I have no strategy for social media and publishing things. I've had friends try to tell me how to do it, and it all like works in theory to me, and I understand it. But again, because I have to like do other things to pay rent sometimes, there's a lot of times something that will interrupt any schedule or plan I make because I have to go make money. I have to work on something that is a guaranteed payday, as opposed to stick to a social media plan for 6 months to hopefully one day break the ever-changing algorithm. I'd love to play that game. If anybody wants to like fund me for a year so that I can apply myself and a social media plan, hit me up in the DMs. But until then, I'm just going to have this sloppy social strategy where I dribble clips out. Life's too short to try and break an algorithm. In conclusion, as of the making of this video, the special and album have been out for 2 months. The numbers on the special are impressive to me. I think it's at like 10,500 right now. But I didn't have a number in mind when I made this and put it out. I just wanted to do it. And I'm incredibly happy with how it came out. It looks like something. It is what I wanted it to be. That was my goal. So thank you for watching it. If you've watched it, if you haven't, go back. I mean, this video is probably really confusing if you haven't seen any of the special. And thanks for subscribing or being here or watching this video or whatever. And a huge thanks to my wife and everyone at the record label Blonde Medicine, and to my Cleveland family and friends, and my Cleveland comedy people. Some of the people that I worked on this with, I've worked on stuff for like over a decade, and I've known them for that long. And it's cool to get to keep doing stuff with people you like in places you like to do stuff. So, you know, if that's the only thing you take away from this, I would say make some friends and then go try and make stuff with those friends and for those friends and however, you know. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.